Please call the medic, this beat came to me on a stretcher. In the lab, I step to the mic and feel like I'm Dexter. I'm a man, dark world, but I'm still shining like treasure. Yeah, I got joy like ha ha ha. Wait, and I can't wear smiles, that's fake. Then I'm between love and strong. Hate clock says no time for mistakes. Ring the alarm, sirens go off, but I'm calm. My life resides in his palm. Submit to my pops, respect for my mom. Honor them both, so my life will be long. Third time, get the charm of the third strike. Had to.
What's going on? How are you doing? Welcome to Trucking with Old Snapper. And I am your boy, I'm Old Snapper. I'm up here in Colorado. I'm at a rest area right near Vail. Beautiful drive, man. It's awesome. I'm headed out to Vegas. So that's what I got going on. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It's free. Doesn't cost you a thing. Do everything on this channel trucking related. In this video, I'm going to talk about something I talked about when I first started this channel. Those videos are not up anymore. They were some good stories. They were from Stevens Transport from my time at that company. And I think I did 3 of them. At that time, I did 3 videos, and I had them separated, part 1, part 2, part 3. I'm going to take them, condense them down, and put them into one video for you guys today. Any of you guys that wonder what Stevens used to be like, some of the scandalous stuff that used to go on there, I have no idea what Stevens is like today. I left Stevens Transport in 2014. Now, I worked at Stevens for 4 years. I did 1 year as a company driver. I did 3 years as a lease operator for them. Now, sometimes I get asked, do I regret going to Stevens Transport? My answer is no. It's where I started at. They gave me the opportunity. They put me in school. And I had tried to go to several other companies. The first company I went to was Swift Transportation. And I was in their school in San Antonio, Texas, and I ended up going to jail. So that put me off a few years. When I came back, I tried to go to CR England. CR England had shot me down over a ticket I got in Oklahoma, up in Ponca City, Oklahoma, years earlier. It was like 4 or 5 years old. But I'd gotten a ticket up there doing 80 and a 60. I was coming back from the casino, and I was arguing with my wife at the time, not paying attention to my speed. Ended up getting pulled over and getting a ticket. And then, of course, back in those days, I'm real anti-government, I guess you could say. I refused to pay the ticket. And back in those days, you could go sit in jail. And it was $100 a day that would go towards your fine. So basically, I wouldn't pay the ticket. I wouldn't show up to court. They would automatically issue a warrant. And then you'd get picked up eventually, and you'd go to jail, and you'd set out whatever the fine was for failure to appear, plus your fine for the ticket you got, and then it was done. So normally 3-4 days, you were done, 5 days at the most, and that ticket was taken care of. So that's what I used to do back in the day when I got a ticket. I never paid tickets. I pay tickets now if I get them, because it's my career, it's my job. But back in them days, if I got a ticket, I didn't pay no tickets. And I mean, I'd be straight up with the officer. You might as well go ahead and take me now, because I'm not paying this ticket. Y'all going to have to come pick me up. Y'all going to have to come find me, and y'all going to have to pick me up, because I'm not paying the ticket. So that's just the way I did it back then. CR England didn't like that. So CR England refused to hire me. So I call Stevens Transport. I was working construction. I was working in the plants. I was up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And my girl was pregnant, and I had just took a layoff. The economy was horrible. That's when we were in the middle of that 2008 recession. So it was like, I got to find something, and I got to find something quick. There wasn't any electrical jobs going on or anything. My youngest daughter was due just a few months down the road, and we needed the money. We needed insurance. We needed those things. I called Stevens Transport. Literally, I called them on Wednesday. I was in their class on that next Monday. Their training was awesome. Some of the best training. At that time, I would say they had the best training in the industry, bar none, hands down. Now, from what I understand from drivers that I know that are still there, that training has changed. It's a lot more watered down than it used to be. They used to have some really good training. Their training was top notch back in the day. So do I regret going to Stevens Transport? No. Not at all. Now, I'll tell you what I do regret. I do regret staying at Stevens Transport so long. Okay, now I should have left after my first year. I guess I was comfortable. I was used to the program. I figured every company would be the same. I was a rookie, so I wasn't sure if I was going to do well at another company. You know, a lot of things run through your head. Once I left, broke that cherry and left, and realized how much more money I could make, how much easier, less stressful. Dude, Stevens was stressful to work for. Their safety department stressed the heck out of you. I probably aged 10 years in that 4 years that I worked there. And that's no joke. I used to have my ID, and I used to show students, this is what I looked like when I started here. And they'd be like, wow. I was like, yeah, this place will stress you out. It was a highly stressful place to work. Now we're going to get into some of these stories from back in the day. Back in the old days, now I know Stevens Transport, if you're working there right now, you're probably going through these safety classes, and they're preaching this safety, 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 right? That's all hogwash. All that is to protect them in court. That's all that is. They don't think that way. And if they could get away with not operating that way, they would, because the same people still work there today that worked there back when I worked there. And I know that from the people that I know that work there. Okay? That the office staff hasn't changed all that much. Randall's no longer there. He passed away. He got fired and then he passed away. That was a guy that paired up trainers and students. Adrian Wheeler, I believe, is gone. I think he got terminated. He's with a company up front. He used to be the director of safety. But Kip is running that class. And I'm going to tell you a story here in just a second that Kip used to tell us in class. Back in the old days, we were on paper logs. We weren't on e-logs. When I first started at Stevens Transport, we weren't on e-logs. We had Qualcomms in the truck, but they were just for communicating back and forth with the office. It's where you would get your loads at and all that kind of stuff, right? And you would accept your loads and send your arrived calls. All that stuff was on there. But it didn't have hours of service. It wasn't that kind of thing. It was like a little laptop in your truck. Had a little bitty screen on it. So we were on paper logs at this time. And here's the game that they used to play. It was stressful as hell on a driver. The driver was pretty much caught up in the middle. Safety would tell you, and this is what Kip told us one time in one of them classes. Back in the old days, we used to have to sit through a workshop at every season change. So you sit through a winter workshop, summer workshop. You know, every time the season changed, there'd be a workshop. You'd have to go to the yard and go through their class. It was usually an hour long. And they would talk about different hazards and stuff from that season that you were going to be facing. It was one of the things that Stevens did. So Kip was giving this class, and I think Kip is director of safety now. Back then he was working in safety, but he wasn't the director, I don't believe. But Kip was giving this class, and he told us straight out, he said, look, he said, we understand that sometimes dispatch will call you with loads that cannot be made legally, that you cannot make legally. If you take that load and you run it illegally and you get caught, we are going to punish you. He said, I've already tried to punish dispatch. We've tried to go that route, and I've already been shut down and told I cannot punish them. But we will punish you. I'll never forget that, man. Told us that straight up in one of them classes. You know, so it was real stressful. You were constantly being pulled two directions, right? And myself personally, I turned down a load one time. Well, I actually did it a couple times. Because I was tired and I didn't want to run like that. I really didn't. I was happy when e-logs came about, because when e-logs came about, all that ended at Stevens Transport. They could no longer get away with doing that. So they couldn't push us like that. But back when we were on paper, we could. And we were getting pushed like that and not making no money. It really sucked. But every time I turned down a load and refused to run like that, you would get money whipped. I called it being money whipped. And they wouldn't tell you straight up that they were going to money whip you. It wasn't like they'd say, okay, yeah, you can refuse this load, we're going to money whip you. No, they wouldn't say anything. Dispatch would say, okay, all right, I understand. And here's what would happen. Your next load would go to the meat patch, most likely, either Liberal, Kansas, or sometimes down Brothel, California. You would sit there for the next 5 to 7 days and not move. Middle of nowhere, waiting on a load to come out that they knew wasn't ready. You would watch other trucks come in, get loads, and leave. And you'd still be sitting there. it would mess your whole week up. And if you were leasing, it would mess your next 3 weeks up. If you get a bad week, it took 3 weeks to get caught back up. So that's the way that silently dispatch would punish us back in the day. So you learned the routine. It didn't take long before you realized you better take that load no matter how tired you are. One time I drove in, I delivered early up in Lubbock, Texas. Dispatch called me, and this was right at the time that they were swapping from paper logs to e-logs. Dispatch called and asked me, are you on e-logs or on paper? And not thinking, it was early in the morning, I was tired. I said, I'm on paper. I said, okay, look, we got a load we need you to run. All right, you're going to go down to Marfa, Texas, which they got a tomato place down there in Marfa, Texas. There's 2 of them, actually. So you're going to make 2 picks. They're right down the road from each other. And then you're going to run back up to Arlington, Texas, and make a 3rd pick. All 3 of those picks need to be made before you take your first break. And then it needs to be in the Bronx, New York, in 2 days. So basically, you got 3 days to run this load. Now, if you do the math, Lubbock, Texas to Marfa, Texas, about 300 miles. Marfa, Texas, back to Arlington, Texas, a little over 500 miles. All right, so you're going to run 810, 815 miles right there before you even take a break. Now, this is in a 62-mile-an-hour truck. That's what they were governed at back then. Then, it's another 1,600 miles or so from Arlington, Texas to the Bronx. You got 2 days to do that in a 62-mile-an-hour truck. That's 800 miles a day. You know how long it takes to do 800 miles a day in a 62-mile-per-hour truck? Not counting going through cities, slowing down, road construction, traffic accidents, everything you get caught up in. Yeah, you're tired. So basically, I'd run as far as I could. I'd stop. I'd take a 1 or 2 hour nap. Run as far as I could. Stop, take a 1 or 2 hour nap. And I did that over and over all the way up there. And I just hammered down the paper logs. I was so tired that I don't remember parking to go to sleep afterwards. Like when I woke up after I slept, I didn't answer the Qualcomm. I didn't answer my phone. I went parked and went to sleep. When I woke up, I did not remember going to where I went to park. That's how tired I was after that trip. Now here's the other thing Stevens used to do to us that was really messed up during that time. They had a log department. Donna Stevens ran the log department. Her husband was Randall Stevens, who I was talking about earlier, that passed away. I'm not sure if Donna's still alive or not. They both caught that 2019 sickness, and that's what ended up killing Randall. They'd call you in to talk to Donna. And you had to do this every time you came to the yard. You had to go by logs. It was one of the things you had to clear off your clearance sheet. So you'd go talk to Donna Stevens. Donna Stevens would go over your logs looking for any imperfection she could find in your log. And if she found an imperfection in your log, you'd get punished for it. Sometimes you had to sit down in the log department all day long and fix logs. Sometimes, you'd get put on suspension where you couldn't take a load for 2 or 3 days. I mean, it was some BS games that Stevens used to play and pull you 2 or 3 different directions. And as a new driver in the industry, you didn't know what to do. And you didn't know how to handle it. And you wasn't making any money doing it. So it was highly stressful. It's hard to deal with. Now we're going to go on to the next story. There used to be a lady that worked there named Melanie Bronson. Her husband was one of the counselors. Back in the old days, they had student counselors or guidance counselors, whatever you wanted to call them, right? There was 3 of them back in the old days. There was Max Bronson, that was Melanie's husband. There was Renee Holland, who I don't believe is there anymore. Max is not there anymore. And then there was another lady who actually ran off with a driver. Not that worked for Stevens Transport. She ran off with an owner-operator. So I don't remember her name. She always wore these real short, skimpy dresses. Melanie Bronson ran the driver fund. When you hired on at Stevens Transport, they gave you an option to donate to this driver fund. It was $1 a paycheck or $1 a week or whatever. It was something, I don't remember exactly how it worked, but I remember it was $1. But Melanie Bronson was in charge of that program. And the purpose of that program, what it was supposed to be for, the purpose of that account, was that if at any point in time a driver at Stevens Transport had an emergency at home, they needed to get home, they didn't have the money to get home, something was going wrong, funeral expenses, whatever. That's what that fund was for. That fund was there to help the drivers. In my 4 years there, I never once heard of anybody successfully pulling money from that fund. You had to go to Melanie and get approved. You would submit what was going on and get approved in order to pull money. And I did hear of drivers going down there and trying, and Melanie denied them every time. We always wondered what was going on. I told them in driver services, don't take another dollar from my check. I do not want to be involved in that program. This is after I was there a couple of years. Well, some time goes by. I'm long gone. Like, I'd been gone about 8 or 9 years already. A buddy of mine calls me, and he's still over there, still at Stevens, still works there today. He calls me, he says, Snapper, you ain't gonna believe this, man. You know, he said, you remember that driver fund we used to donate to back in the day? I said, yeah. He said, well, they just arrested Melanie up at the terminal. From what I understand, they arrested her at the terminal. It turned out Melanie Bronson was writing checks from that account to pay her own bills at home, while drivers were getting denied pulling any money from that account. Now, how it all turned out, I don't know. I've Googled it a couple times to see, but I've never found any answers. I don't know if she got probation. I don't know if she went to prison. I don't know how it all worked out. But I know Stevens set her up. They ended up getting her up there. They did arrest her there in Mesquite, and she was charged with it. And the amount of money, I don't remember, but it was a lot. It was like in the hundreds of thousands. I don't think it was in the millions, but it was up in the hundreds of thousands, I believe. So she stole a lot of money out of that account. And what's crazy is she didn't care, because she was literally writing the checks from that account to whatever bills she had that needed to be paid at her house. Now we're going to get into the Stevens Transport story that most drivers love to hear about. And I'm sure that Stevens ain't the only place this happens at, but it's the only place I've ever worked where I've seen it happen. Most places I've worked, there's always been a professional relationship between office staff and drivers. I don't know of anywhere I've ever worked where drivers and office staff had relations beyond a professional level. And that's honest truth. Stevens is the only place I've ever worked where that's kind of stuff I knew was going on, and it was going on all the time. Here's what used to happen, and I don't know if this still happens today. I don't know if Stevens ever got it under control. I don't know if they figured it out. I ain't got a clue. But back in the old days, this is what used to happen. Ladies that worked in the office would be dating 2 or 3 drivers, and they'd have each one of those drivers sending them a little money every time they got paid. Maybe $100, $200, $300, whatever they could afford to send. Well, think about it. You're working in the office. You're getting a full-time paycheck from them. You're getting $100 or $200 or $300 from 2 or 3 drivers that you're dating. You're only seeing them once every 2 or 3 months. Okay? So as long as you make sure you don't see all 3 or 4 of them at the same time, you're good to go. Each one of them thinks you're in love. Each one of them thinks that you got something, y'all got something going on, right? That was a hustle at Stevens, and the girls in the office used to run that hustle quite a bit. Now, I learned about that pretty early on. My finishing trainer, back then you had a starting trainer and a finishing trainer. You went out twice. So my finishing trainer, the guy that was finishing me up, he was dating one of the girls in insurance, or so he thought he was dating one of the girls in insurance. Really, she was just what I'd call a Stevens Transport prostitute. Basically, Stevens Transport had a prostitution ring going out of their office, and they didn't even know it. And I'm not sure if they still do. Yeah, they may not know. Who knows? I don't work there anymore, so couldn't tell you. So he was messing with one of the girls in insurance. And we got back to the yard. He was pissed. He had already told me the story. I was a student. I don't know why he told me this story, why he felt comfortable, because to me, it was just hilarious. It wasn't happening to me. Anyway, old boy had caught an STD from this girl in insurance, obviously, because she's messing with 2 or 3 drivers. And you got to remember, this is back in the days of lot lizards. So some of these drivers are messing with lot lizards too. So the probability of an STD is probably pretty high. He ends up catching an STD from this lady in insurance. And it was funny because he went in there with the paperwork. When we got back to the yard, he went in there with the paperwork from the doctor. He put the paperwork down on her desk and told her, pay the bill. You know, wanted her to pay his his bill, and she was trying to calm it down, and because she was trying to, in public, out in front of everybody, look professional, like nothing was going on. But yeah, he ended up catching an STD from her. But I call it the Stevens Transport Brothel, and that's kind of the way it was going down back in the day. That's the way it was. I don't know if Stevens Transport ever figured it out. I don't know if Stevens Transport ever got that under control and brought a stop to it. I am positive if the upper management had known what was happening, they for sure would have put that to a stop. They wouldn't have allowed it. Well, that's the old Stevens Transport stories. I hope you enjoyed them. I appreciate you for stopping by. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Y'all take care, stay safe, and let's keep trucking.
Please call the medic, this beat came to me on a stretcher. In the lab, I step to the mic and feel like I'm Dexter. I'm a man, dark world, but I'm still shining like treasure. Yeah, I got joy like ha ha ha. Wait, and I can't wear smiles, that's fake. Then I'm between love and strong. Hate clock says no time for mistakes. Ring the alarm, sirens go off, but I'm calm. My life resides in his palm. Submit to my pops, respect for my mom. Honor them both, so my life will be long. Third time, get the charm of the third strike. Had to.